But anyways, by the time we got on stage, it was midnight. I was blackout drunk. I face planted badly, busted my nose. We were known to be a party band live. And to me, it didn't matter. My friends and family have seen us blackout party, but to the label, it didn't look so good. And that was kind of like the beginning of the end. Was like, all right, we need to figure some shit out, or we're done.
Battle Line Podcast, you guys do not want to miss this. We have an interview with Jake Sirokman of the mighty Manntis. Some of you may be old school Manntis fans who are checking this out, or fans of what Jake is currently doing as a personal development coach. If you don't know the name Manntis, you absolutely know some of the bands they've toured with, and there are some amazing stories in here. Bands like In This Moment, Dope, Anthrax, Unearth we mention here. I'm trying to think of what other bands are mentioned. Hatebreed, God forbid. So if you're a fan of any of those bands, do not go anywhere. You're going to love this interview. We go over the whole history of the band Manntis. And there actually is a little bit of a military connection there, which I was not aware of. So this is the only place you're going to hear it, right here on Battle Line Podcast. If you're wondering, where is Chris Peranto? He's been pretty consistent, actually. You know, there was a period where a lot of the times it was just me doing this show sometimes. Chris has been on pretty much every week for quite a while. Pretty much this whole year, he's been very present, doing less speaking engagements. So he did do a speaking engagement, but while he was out, in addition to that, he did a show many of you have been asking him to be a part of, which he was invited to do, but he kind of took his time and actually taking the trek to Tennessee until he actually had a speaking engagement there. And you'll hear it here first. He just recorded for the Sean Ryan show. I don't know when it's going to be out, and no one has said I can't say this, so I'm gonna say it. It is a freaking, I believe, 6-hour interview from what Chris said to me on the phone today. So, yeah, strap in for that one. That's a big one. So in the next couple of weeks or months, you are going to hear Chris Peranto on the Sean Ryan show. Hey, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review if you're listening on the audio platforms. As I said, you do not want to go anywhere for this interview with Jake Sirokman from Manntis. But before we get to it, as many of you may know, Jake is very big on fitness. The guy has competed in physique and is also a personal trainer, personal development coach, and he does talk about how he's always been big on supplementation. Hey, I'm big on supplementation. The problem is most supplements are complete garbage, and that is not true at all for Bubs Naturals. They have the best collagen because it's from grass-fed cows. It is single-sourced, and it is just the best collagen out there, plain and simple. There's a lot of products that you can get just by having a healthy diet, eating clean, and hitting your macros, but you're really not eating collagen with any of the stuff that you're consuming in your diet. So you need that collagen. That's what keeps the skin elastic. It's what keeps your hair, skin, nails, all of that healthy. And there's no better place to get it than Bubs Naturals. I love their Hydrate or Die. You've heard me talk about that on episodes. It's hot out there. You're going to need something with electrolytes. If you're out there running in this warm weather as we're beginning September and it's still hot in here in New York, so check out Hydrate or Die. Check out the collagen protein powder, something you're going to take every day and make part of your supplement regimen, whether you're in shape now or getting into shape. Go to bubsnaturals.com, use the promo code BATTLELINE, and you'll get a very generous 20% off as a first-time customer. bubsnaturals.com, promo code BATTLELINE. Link is in the description. Without further ado, let's get over to Jake Sirokman.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal. engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on, Battle Line Podcast, and with me is Jake Sirokman, who I really know as the lead vocalist of Manntis, but currently personal development coach with JWX. And it's great to have you on, man. You might be surprised why I even hit you up, because I think people see what we do with Battle Line Podcast, and it's mainly, there's this show Chris and I created, Chris Peranto, and with him being a Benghazi attack survivor, Army Ranger, firearms instructor, we're kind of in that lane. But when we launched this show in 2019 and we're like equal parts in it, I was just like, I kind of want to interview other people that I just find interesting from other realms. And then sometimes there's a military connection there, even if we wouldn't think so. So I am just a fan of yours and a fan of Manntis. So I'm honored to have you on, man.
Well, I appreciate that, dude. And I think it's great to add to the credentials of the show, man, even though I co-host on a podcast for online coaches and whatnot. We still bring in musicians because that's my background. And at the end of the day, man, everything kind of links and ties together. And although it is military or vet, inspired, I mean, I guess it's kind of cool. I played so many forts across the U.S. that never served, but I definitely entertained the hell out of those guys.
See, I didn't even know that. And then we could get into there, because I always feel like more times than not, there's a connection there that you wouldn't even know about, even if like an artist isn't overtly like pro-military or political or anything like that.
Sure. Nope.
Like with like the people we've had on starting the show, like I said, I just wanted to have maybe guys in bands on that I knew or was friends with. Never did I think we'd have on people like Corey Taylor. But like when I saw that Corey Taylor was launching this veterans organization, I was like, we got to get him on the show. And it happened. But here's the funny thing, and I do not say this to kiss your ass at all. Like, we've had on John Dolmayan from System of a Down. We've had on Corey Taylor. Truth be told, though, even though Manntis has not been active in like nearly 20 years, I am more often than not listening to Manntis than any of those bands.
That's awesome. That's
yeah, all these years later.
Well, I mean, to correct you, I mean, as of right now, we are not active, but we have played up until last year. This is the longest we've gone without playing live. So I'm kind of getting the itch again. And I've got a few side projects, man, which we could get into. But I just, finding the time now with families. And I just talked to my drummer, Anna Dare, today. We're going to link up next week and just start throwing down, because so many people are expecting that sophomore album from us. Yes. And it was hard. Every time we got together, it was either a party or we just start playing bullshit. And we have 3 albums written. We've just never put them together and actually taken the time to.
I didn't know there was 3. I knew there was another that was there. And when I say not active, it's just like, we'll get into it. But you guys were on major tours. I saw Manntis 3 different times on totally different shows with huge bands. Yeah. But it's just, there was only 1 album there, and that was it.
Yeah, it pulls on my heartstrings a little bit, because I knew what our potential was, and we were just scratching the surface with what we were capable of. But again, it's kind of what we'll get into today is just a life of just partying, dude. We let the party. We were young. We were 21. We'd seen New York. We played CBGBs, 3 times before I was even 24 years old. So when you and playing with the bands that we did, and we were the opening band most of the time until we started doing our headlining tour. So it would just be party mode. We'd start partying before we played. And then by the time, even the Hatebreed tour, I think we were on tour with them for, close to 3 months. And I was just telling somebody this story, and so many people don't know. We went from, God, I can't remember it was one of the tours straight into Hatebreed, which started in Connecticut. And the tour before that ended in Boston. So we lived in Boston for about a month broke. We had a good friend. Yeah, we had a good friend by the name of Bubba, who is the drummer for Hell Within, allowed us to stay at his house. And then we jumped on the Hatebreed tour for, 2 or 3 months, made it back home, I think, for maybe a week. Then we went to Europe for almost 2 months, came back home for a few days and went straight to Dope. And by the time we did the Dope tour with Bleed the Sky, we were just annihilated.
I was at that tour.
Were you really? I was
Yes.
just, dude, that's dope. I was just with Austin at Rise Above 2 weeks ago. I mean,
And we by the way, and we've had Etzel Dope on the podcast.
that's awesome. Very
And
cool.
my introduction to Dope, come to think of it, was that I went to go see you guys at the downtown, not the downtown, the Crazy Donkey, which is no longer a venue on Long Island. And I went for Manntis. I didn't really know Dope. I went because I wanted to see you guys and
Was that
fun
the
tour.
God? I want to say, was that the one we met up with the guys from Biohazard and Kitty played that show? It was like they're
No,
like,
because I would have remembered that.
because we did a one off in New Jersey, and it was a couple members from Kitty, Biohazard. It was just like a makeup band, and fuck, it was right on the shore. And yeah, I could hardly remember, but I remember that those two bands were tied into one. And I thought it was maybe the Dope Tour, but God, there's been so many.
It may have been the Long Island date, though. That's the one I was at, and you guys opened. So, we should start on this because I'm sure there's people, there's probably your fans checking this out who love Manntis. They're diehard like me for 20 years. They've been listening to the album. There's also probably people unfamiliar with your background. They don't know all the bands that you guys were toured with and,
Sure.
were linked to. So I would love to get into where it all began because to me, I feel like that first album that you guys did, once again, really the only album, I don't know if it was that it was ahead of its time. I don't know all the, details within the band, but
Sure.
I 100% feel like that album should have been much bigger. The band should have been much bigger. I know there was the stuff that Dare did with MTV. So yeah, let's get into where it all began. That'd be cool.
So, oh shit, man. I mean, I've told the story so many times, but it's been so long. So myself, Clint, my bass player, and Jimmy, the drummer, we were all in punk rock bands all through high school. And it was around ninth or 10th grade, I started getting into the hardcore straight edge scene, listening to a lot of Strife, Earth Crisis. I went to my first hardcore show and I'm like, what the fuck is punk rock? Like, this is like a hardcore show watching Strife and Earth Crisis at 15 years old. I'm like, holy shit. So I kind of went a little bit heavier in the music. I was a bass player at the time. And thank God my vocalist was just a flaky stoner. He stopped showing up one day and we just slowed let me back up. My guitar player at the time, Brandon, in my punk rock bands, we started diving into a little bit hardcore stuff. And I put down the bass, started screaming one day. And that was around 15. But we met up, Backyard Keggers, the Barn Showcase Theater, two local venues here in Riverside. And we were just playing together in backyard parties. Became really good friends. I was in high school with these guys. And I think it was my senior year. I was a wrestler. I was a punk rock jock. I was a wrestler. I was playing hockey. And senior year, I wasn't doing any music. Came graduation, I was working at a local pizza place, and I happened to run into Clint from one of the old punk rock bands and a guy by the name of Matt Huff, our original guitar player. Rest in peace. He passed away some years ago. They found me delivering pizzas on this like dirt road in this Woodcrest buttfuck cow town. And they're screaming at me like, "You got to come check out the new band, man, Jimmy's house." And I'm like, "All right, I'll go."
And when you say the town, this is a town in California, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Woodcrest. It's where our band house is. It's where we're all from. And they're screaming at me at a couple deliveries. And one of the deliveries was right by Jimmy, my drummer's house. And so I popped in there while I was in the middle of fucking pizza delivery. And I started listening to these guys. I'm like, holy shit, this is pretty damn good. So I was like, hey, let me go finish my shift. I'll come back right after. Came back, jumped in the room, and I just started screaming. There was 4 of us at that time. And then from there, like I had to be about 18 years old. From there, we just started playing and playing. We were there every single night. We brought in another guitar player, Nick. This is well before Dare. Eventually, we had a second singer. At that point, I brought in my buddy Marco to do some soft stuff. It was kind of around the time Linkin Park was around. We were big fans of Point of Recognition. A lot of these bands had 2 vocalists, and we're like, hey, let's do this. This is something new. And we were all just so different, man. Some of the guys listen to Misfits. I was a hardcore kid. Jimmy was a punk rock guy. Marco was like a like stained, old school, like emo kind of dude. Nick Eller was just a gutter punk. So we had all these different genres like forced into one. And that's what really gave us our sound. It was this dark, evil punk rock beat with hardcore breakdowns. Fast forward, Marco's out of the band. I became the lead vocalist. I think we shifted about 3 guitar players at that point. It's hard to really like kind of put everything into it. There's been so much. The crazy thing that happened was right when we started headlining these shows and we were making a name in our hometown. I mean, we were selling out local venues. We were going all the way to Orange County, San Bernardino. We had some big shows. God, I can't remember some of the band names, but we were playing some pretty big shows prior to even touring. And it was in 2003, right at the peak of when we were just about to do some tours and do some shit. I was involved in a car accident,
Oh,
and
wow.
that car accident involved a break in my C4 and my C6. I was going on to the river with a couple buddies. We were sober. I was meeting out for my cousin's birthday, and there was flash floods the night before. We went to go pass a Sea-Doo, and as we accelerated past the Sea-Doo, we got up to about 75, and right when we got in front of that Sea-Doo, we saw basically a body of water. And at that point, it was too late. We hit that body of water, lost control. We rolled 3 times. I had no seatbelt on. I remember the entire thing. We landed upright, and I remember to the day, Corn Ball Tongue was playing on the radio, and for some reason that CD just kept sticking. Ball Tongue, Ball Tongue. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of the car. The door was so jammed because that's the side it catapulted on me. I felt like I had whiplash. Definitely didn't know it was broken at that point, and I'm screaming. I'm like, "Get me the fuck out of the car!" Like I wanted a cigarette. I wanted one of the beers from the ice chest in the back. And luckily, my buddy at the time was going to school to be an EMT. He goes, "Hey, just relax. Someone's gonna be." And this is in the middle of nowhere. This is, we call it Rice Road. It's in the middle of nowhere. So I just remember just sitting in that car until the fire department came. They came, the jaws of life, got me out, put me on a stretcher. I'm sitting there talking. I'm like, "How long is this going to take? I want to get to the river. I want to pound some beer." And it wasn't until they got me to the emergency room, they told me that I had broken my C4 and C6, and I just froze. I was like,
Jeez.
"Holy shit, what the fuck?"
And you didn't realize that
I
it
didn't
was
realize. The
anything
doctor's like,
severe like that.
"No, I was talking. I was coherent. My parents were there. My girlfriend at the time was there. About 40, 50 people at this time had showed up to the hospital asking questions. And once they told me that, it got pretty serious. I happened to go in the next day. It was like 1 or 2 days later. I went in for a 12-hour procedure. There's about 12 surgeons in there. They went through my front vocal cord, which paralyzed my left vocal cord. Had the neck brace. They didn't do the halo. They went through the back butterfly. They put in 2 rods, 14 screws, 4 plates or some shit like that. It's still on my neck today. But when I came out of that surgery, the doctor had said, "You'll never scream again." They said, "You're never going to have a voice. You'll never be able to talk normal." I had this like Marlon Brando kind of Godfather, like, "Hey, what's up?"
You don't even think to call me Godfather. Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter's to be married and you ask me to do murder.
And it scared the shit out of me, dude. I went home and I literally, like, thank God for my friends and family. Like I said, Manntis was just at a peak, so we were hometown heroes. I was getting nothing but cards and love and people coming over. We actually had a benefit show, which sold out with over 600 people in our hometown. That raised a lot of money to help pay for the surgery because it was in the millions. And it was a scary time of life, dude. Yeah, it was the first of its procedure, which obviously worked out because I'm the only person that I know of. It's probably different now, but back then that ever walked away from this car accident. Like normally, it's paralyzed from the neck down. I've met a few people at the same break, so I was
And everyone else in the car came out
completely
basically
fine,
unscathed. Wow.
completely fine. So what happened was the driver, he was belted. It was one of those Ford Rangers. So the dude behind me, Zach, he was like scrunched up because I was reclined. So he was just stuck in place. He had his lap belt on. I didn't have my seatbelt. So when the car catapulted for the first time, it hit my side and my head hit the top of
Yeah.
the top of the roof, which I think was the initial break because you could actually see the indent my head left. Thank God I was a big boy at that time. And I grabbed onto the O-ship bar and the center console. I couldn't move my arms for a couple of weeks. But yeah, they both walked out there completely fine. But yeah, man, when they told me that, it was scary, man. My band was like, "What do we do? We're like, what's going to go on?" I'm like, "You guys got to keep playing." And we still had that second vocalist at the time. So they kind of went a different route. It was still heavy, but it was more of like a hard rock. It just wasn't the same. My drummer was a black metal, hardcore kid. He's like, "I can't play this shit." He's double bass. It's Jimmy. He's amazing drummer. And months went by. I was in severe depression. I was going out drinking every night in my neck brace. Every bar I went to, people knew me, buying me shots, partying, you name it. I was getting blackout almost every night in depression.
Wow.
So it was just some random morning. I was living at my folks' house, and my drummer had called, and he's like, "Hey, is Jake there?" And I was like, "This is Jake." And he's like, "No, stop fucking with me. Where's Jake?" And I was like, "Jimmy, it's Jake." He's like, "Your voice." And I'm like, "My fucking voice." And it was like that instant, like, what the fuck? And literally that night I got up to the band practice or back up
Wait,
to the
meaning
band.
so he was like, your voice is back to how it was.
Yeah, my voice was I woke up, my voice was completely normal. It's
Just
like I
one day you woke up? It wasn't a gradual thing?
I'm not bullshitting. It literally
Wow.
was a night where it was like, holy, I don't know what it was, what the hell happened. As far as I remember, I could have been hungover. This could be a completely different fucking story, but this is how I remember it 21 years. It'll be 21 years in September, but it literally was within that morning. I just, hello. And I was like, this is Jake. And he's like, Jake, your voice. And I'm like, holy shit, my voice. And I'm not making this shit up. This is how insane. And literally that night, I called for band practice. I called my buddy Joey G. Rest in peace, Joey G. He was running all the shows up in Seattle, the Elk Hour Zone, Fenders, you name it. And he had told me back some time prior to my accident, hey, if Manntis ever wanted to get up to the Northwest, give me a call. I'll line you up a tour going from California all the way up. And it was like the day after we practiced that night. My voice was on point. My highs were. I actually screamed. I lost it maybe 3 or 4 songs in.
Which is crazy because I would think you'd probably be like, all right, let me rest this for a little bit, because for those who don't know the music of Manntis, it is fucking heavy. And
Yeah.
also, unlike a lot of metal bands today, I've heard Jamie Joster refer to them as like ticklers, where they're making these noises that sound like, but they're not
Yeah.
actually screaming. Your vocals have always been that you are probably damaging your voice quite a lot, because you're like a guy like, Frankie Palmieri from Your Home Friends, with how he is really screaming way up there. And he's
Yeah.
probably screwed up his voice over the years doing it, but that's what you, Jamie Josta, like, that's what you guys do.
Yeah. I've never had any kind of vocal lessons. I've worked with what's her name up in she's out by you
Melissa
guys now.
Cross. I feel like that's
Yeah.
the one person.
Yeah. I
It's
worked with
one name.
yeah, I worked with Melissa Cross a few times back, and especially during Ozfest. We'll get to that later when I lost my voice. But no, I drank Jack Daniels, smoked cigarettes, and screamed my face off. That was never.
Yeah.
I never did the like people are now are like, can you scream in place? I'm like, I actually can't scream. Like if you ask me to scream right now, I'd be like, I can't do it. But yeah, I would do this. I remember I got through a couple songs at least. It was 2 or 3 if I could remember correctly, and we belted out. And I said, hey man, this is my second life, and this is exactly where Second Life, which is now my online fitness company, kind of came from. Second Life Ahead. So this is where Dare comes in. Is I had a meeting with the boys, and I said, you guys, this is my second chance to do something, and I was giving my voice back to make music for a living, entertain the world. And Nick at that time, our guitar player, couldn't go on tour. So I said, all right, dude, you're out. We knew Adair from being one of our biggest fans. He was a young kid coming up. Kid just shredded. And I called him and his mom, because his mom back then was our band mom. I said, Denise, I want your son. He was like 17. So I think he was still in high school at this time. I said, I want your son to come on tour with us. We're leaving for 3 weeks and we leave in a week. And she's like, you got it. I'll make it happen. And that's kind of the history. And that kind of led up to just multiple tours going up to the Northwest, Oregon, Vegas, Tahoe, Reno. We dominated the entire West Coast. You know what I mean? And it was one tour we were on, headlining tour. It was actually really well. We had a gig that night in Seattle. I can't remember the name of the venue. And we got a phone call from somebody saying that they were doing auditions for this new upcoming TV show called Battle for Ozfest. And the guys were like, but it's tomorrow. It was like tomorrow evening you had to be there. And it's a 30, don't quote me on this. I think it's about a 30 or something hour straight drive. We would have had to cancel that show that evening and make it straight to LA for auditions that next day. I said, absolutely not. We're not doing fuck MTV. I'm not doing
So
this.
you knew it was MTV. You knew.
I knew it was MTV. I knew they were doing this whole battle process. We didn't know the terms. We didn't know what it was about. We just got the call saying, hey, we just saw this, or they heard it on the radio. I said, absolutely not, dude. That's what, like some reality show. Like, fuck that. We're not missing our concert tonight to fucking go try out for this bullshit.
By the way, knowing the timeline in my head, this is also pre-Jersey Shore, so it's probably like in your head you weren't like, this is going to be a hit. You were like, this could be a show on at 3 a.m. that no one watches.
Bro, this was when Real World was dominated. This is before the social media and the reality TV. So it was like Road Rules. I'm like, how would this even? There's fucking, and mind you, Ozfest was huge. This was 2000. This would have been going on to the 2004, 2005 season. Yeah. So Ozfest was at an all-time peak, and I got outnumbered. The dude's like, fuck you, Jake, we're doing this. And I'm like, I was pissed because I don't like canceling shows. And thank God that it happened, because, and we could have done this without MTV. I don't know at the same peak of some of the bands we toured with, but definitely we had it coming. This just basically catapulted us a little bit quicker. So we made the drive, we pull into LA, and you just see the streets of LA filled. This was at the Palladium, and we're talking thousands and thousands of bands. And I'm like, holy shit, this is some real shit. So that next morning, we stand in line, we go through all the weird shit, we do some auditions, no music. We just had to do some like interviews, and they pass us along from producer to person to Sharon and Ozzy. And they're like, all right, thank you guys. And everyone just exit. And we're all like thousands of people just looking at each other like, now what do we do? So we just go home, fucking went and started playing music. I'm booking another tour, and we get a phone call. And the phone call's like, hey, we need you guys to be here on this day. We're going to announce this and this. So we're like, what does this mean? We still didn't really know what it was about. So we're all at the band house. And I don't know the time between that first audition and then the second one.
And when you say the band house, were you guys all living together?
So myself, Jeremy, and Clint, the guitar player at the time, Clint and myself were in the back of Jimmy's parents' house. And it was that we call it the House of Manntis, which was our actual band house. Adair was there. He basically lived there, but he didn't have a bed. It only fit. It was a garage turned into a jam studio. So it's just where we've been playing music since '97. So we're all there. We're jamming, and all of a sudden this black car pulls up, and guy gets out, hands us this VHS, and he's like, "Here, play this." We play, and it's like, "Congratulations, you guys made it in the top 8 of Battle for Ozfest." We're like, "Fuck yeah, this is dope!" And like, but one thing, we're taking your guitar player. We're like, "What?" Like, he's leaving, and this was months. So like, and he's even like, "Whoa, young kid, 17 years old, about to go to Sharon and Ozzy's house." But it all worked out, and obviously from the episodes.
So he was, you guys weren't featured on the show, just the Dare.
Right. So they took one member from each of these bands. So it's TV, and Adair by far is probably the most what's the proper word for him? Articulate, just outgoing, well-mannered kid. He
and also, truthfully, it's like I'm thinking TV, and especially how TV is, they're probably like, I believe there's mixed, right? Or so they care about all that stuff with demographics, and
100%. Yeah, we call it Derek Oreo, half black, half white. So he's but yeah, at that time it made for perfect because you had the punk rock girl, you had the white Jersey dude, and then you had the South Carolina boy, and then you had Adair, the African. So it worked out perfect. And you put Adair in any room or any situation, he could play the drums, he could sing. He can play the bass. He can play guitar. He's a DJ. So he is the most talented. You put me in there, I'm like, I can scream. Or play a power chord or some bass lick. But it worked out for TV, man. And they took him for quite some time. I don't remember the exact time frame. While they're filming the entire show, I think it was halfway through. They're filming. They're in Florida, and they said, you guys need to be on a plane. Oh, no. I take that back. They brought Jeremy out they let you take one member to do the acoustic version with Rob Halford from Judas Priest. So they're able to do that.
Unreal, right?
Yeah. So we won that one actually, and we're far from any acoustics, but Adair actually sing that song. They won that award with Rob Halford.
Is that because I just, this is so long ago. Is that the song that wound up on the last song in the first album?
Right. Yeah. And by no means did we want that, but the label was like we weren't even going to put it on. Century Media was the one that actually was like, you guys got to put this one on.
I feel like that was a great move to put that on there, though, man. I mean, it's a great song, and I think it does show versatility.
Adair's just one of those dudes where now not so much. He's gained a lot of confidence over the years, but back then, like for him to sing an acoustic song, we knew he was made for it, but it wasn't our style, But it ended up being a great song, and the lyrics were strong. So. But yeah, that was about the time, Jeremy went out there, and then they called the whole band out, and we had no idea what was going on. They let us practice in some studios. It was the first time we'd seen each other in like 6 months. I lost my voice again that one just from screaming so hard. And they told us it was like, hey, you guys are playing the main stage Ozfest and like tomorrow. It was like tomorrow night. They gave us 24 hours notice. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? What are you talking about? And there we go. We're off to Ozfest. We're all on this bus together, and go backstage, and they're like, Manntis, you're on right before Slayer and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath. We're like,
which is great, but at the same time, you never want to play before Slayer.
No, nobody ever wants to play before. But we embraced that moment. It definitely was the largest. I think they clocked it at like 60,000 people that day, and it was rough, dude. It was the adrenaline. Like I still go back and I'll watch that episode and I'll see that performance. I'm just like, it seems like another life. It was unreal, but it definitely stamped us because people knew at that time, like, this is the band that should have won. Although every band on that show was amazing. We're glad we got what we got out of it, which was, we got a record label. We were signed with Ozzy and Sharon through our management, which led us to Blasco and John Fenton and so forth. So And that's kind of the gist of the history of where we started.
That's awesome. Because you know
Yeah.
what's funny? So at that time, I heard of the show. I maybe saw a little bit of it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't something I regularly watched. My introduction to Mantis, and I think you might even remember some of the characters involved, was I am an old school juggalo. And
Oh,
2004, I believe,
yep.
Mantis played Gathering of the Juggalos. And I was friends with a guy from Jersey who was like the super Mantis fan who you may remember, you may not. Do you remember a bigger dude by the name of Mike Jekyll? He went by Mike Jekyll.
That Frog.
What's up?
Do we call him Frog or just
Maybe.
Jack? I
But
remember
you know
Mike
I'm
Jack.
talking, he was a big, loud, obnoxious Jersey dude.
Insane. Yes, I definitely remember Mike Jack.
Okay, so he's been a friend of mine for many years, and he, is a metalhead who also loved ICP and all that stuff. And I remember prior to that gathering, he was like, "You got to see this band Mantis. I don't even care about ICP. I'm psyched to see Mantis." And the thing is, anybody who's been to the gathering knows about it. Man, so many bands just get treated like complete shit by that audience. They get stuff thrown at them. Unless you're ICP, no one cares, and you guys went over great, and that's how I became a fan.
It's and I think that's why I'm so sad we stopped touring, was because we were that band. We didn't care who we played with. We didn't care what genre of music. We didn't. There was no scene for us. We grew up in Riverside where we're talking Voodoo Glow Skulls, Cottonmouth Kings, Alien Ant Farm, um, Color Red. I mean, these band Assorted Jelly Beans. There was such a variety of music in Riverside that we didn't have a hardcore scene. We didn't have a metal scene. We didn't have a hip hop scene. It was a bunch of just fucking people that loved music and going out and partying and just having a good time. So that really evolved with us as we toured, because we didn't say no to Dope. We didn't say no to Terror. We didn't say no to Madball. We didn't say no to ICP or you're going to go on before Too Short or after Mini Kiss. Like, we didn't care about the genres or the scenes. We
Too Short,
literally,
by the way, who's a legend who got stuff thrown at him, and I remember walked off stage.
I got a great story for that too. But
Okay.
I think it was because of Mike Jekyll. But when we got offered this, we didn't go and find it. We literally got offered, and I think we were the only metal band at that time to ever play Juggalo. And most bands would have said fuck no to that. And we took it, and we're like, I got on their forums. I was very respectful. I go, you guys, like, if you're there, you love us, we'll show respect. And thank God Clint, my bass player, used to be a Juggalo. So when he came out, he said, "Who's down with the hatchet?" I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? But as soon as he said that, I think that just praised the audience to give us the respect. But I want to say, if it wasn't for Mike Jekyll hopping in those forums and really spreading Manntis and what we were about and where we came from, that really helped us in our performance.
Oh my, I have
Because
to text him after this conversation because he'll be so stoked to hear that, man.
I want to say it was him that was on those forums.
Very likely. Yeah, I know him from forums, very likely.
Okay,
And
good.
for those who don't know, for like the younger people in the audience, man, forums back in the day before social media, like that was the shit. And there's so many people I'm still friends with today from forums.
I still talk to people that ran my Manntis forum because I was present on that thing I remember just being in the band room. I'd be waking up in my boxers, got to get to the forums. And this is MySpace days. This is when we had our tunes back in the day, but I lived on those forums, and people were like, no way, this is really Jake. And I'm like, I'd take like a picture or whatever is to prove. I'm like, this is me. I'm in my boxers, like talking to you guys. And, it's sad. Bands, I think a lot of bands still may do that now. We have to, it's a social media world, but thank God for those times. But speaking of that night, and by the way, that was in the middle of our tour. So I think we showed up annihilated, and we parked our bus right backstage. We're starving at this time. We had no food. Like I said, we were in between tours. Adair and D-Rock are so shit-faced. They're going through the mobile modulars, and they're just trying to, we're known for that shady band to just jack beers from everybody. I mean, fuck, I couldn't even count the amount of times I probably personally sold Jamie Joss's alcohol. And they would know, God forbid, they're always like, fucking Manntis, all that remains hated us because we always jack. Every time they're on stage, we get into the room, fucking hit a couple beers, start chugging them. But we were kids, so they weren't really upset with us. So Adair and D-Rock are doing their shady ass shit, walking mobile modular to mobile modular. They open one up, and they see fried chicken and grapes and watermelon and beer and Hennessy, and they're just going to fucking town. They come back and they've got a bucket of fried chicken. They've got a bottle of like Hennessy or Kabasi or whatever the fuck it was. We're like, where did you get that? Like this mobile module over there. Jeff, funny man, he was our tour manager at that time. He goes, "Hey, dude, who stole the shit from Too Short's mobile modular?"
Wow.
And Darren, look at each other like, bro, that's where you got that from. Go put that shit back. They went and returned. I want to say Too Short was in there and just laughed his ass off. He's like, you motherfuckers came up in my shit and took my fried chicken. Dude, it's one of the best stories you could tell somebody, man. But
Yeah.
Juggalo was on. I think I just launched something with that. It's on YouTube. The whole performance is on YouTube. Horrible quality, but I mean, dude, the minute they started throwing Fago, and I'm like, I thought they hated us. I mean, they're throwing toilet paper and Fago at us, and
I don't remember it being that brutal for you guys. But it's been so long ago.
They threw a lot of Fago, but then I looked at someone like that's a sign of respect, and I'm just like, oh shit.
Yeah, to some, I mean, some of them just get bombarded with it and just walk off stage because it's like, I mean, how could you play with that?
Well, I watched Mini Kiss played before us. Those were the midget Kiss cover band, and they had to stop because the entire drum set got demolished, and we're like, we're going on next.
I remember also a bottle getting thrown at Mini Kiss. I mean, and they're little people, you know what I mean? So just one bottle getting thrown at them, they're knocked to the ground. It was brutal, man.
It was bad, and we were side stage watching this go down. We're like, oh, fuck, we're completely doomed. They're gonna hate us. And no, there was never like a bottle thrown in my face. They're always going different directions. So I knew somebody had told me like, you're good, like keep going, because there was one point I'm like, should we stop? Like it was getting sticky up there, like literally.
And also, if you damage your instruments, you're fucked if that happens, you know?
Yeah. But it worked over well, man. We got a lot of hype over it, and we were invited to play the following year as well, which was not as big as the first one. There was something, and correct me if I'm wrong if you know this, but we were supposed to play like the second or third night or something, but it was in an old like horse type of like ranch thing, and there was actual like feces in the mud, and people were getting sick. Did you hear something about that?
I mean, I went 3 times, and I remember like 2 of them were in Ohio, 1 was in Illinois.
It was both Ohio, but they changed the grounds for some reason. But it used to be where there's just manure, but it had something in it that was getting people sick. And we found out the night before. I think we showed up there, and it just was a disaster. It was,
jeez,
that's when they probably
fully remember that. No,
I mean, I slightly remember, but it was nowhere near the. I don't even know if we ended up playing, which is crazy because we'll play anywhere.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, the Juggalo. A lot of people knocked us for that, but like I said, we were that band that we didn't give a fuck. We wanted to play.
It's funny that you mentioned God Forbid, because all right, so I saw you on the tour with Dope. I saw you there. And then the third tour that I saw, and anyone listening to this who's a metalhead, this is legendary. And I don't know if you remember, well, you got to remember this, but I'm just, if you haven't thought about it in a while, New York City, the original lineup of Anthrax reunites with Joey Belladonna, which I could tell you, Joey Belladonna, like a couple years before then, was playing tiny venues here on Long Island. I remember seeing Joey Belladonna play the downtown in Farmingdale to like 50 people. Next thing you know, he's playing Times Square, Nokia Theater, which is now called something else. All these venues change names. But anyway, reunited Anthrax, which is huge. I'm pretty damn sure that was sold out. Sworn Enemy, God Forbid, Manntis. What a show.
Oh, I have it somewhere. Oh, I've got it hanging up right here, my Anthrax. That was legendary. When people ask me, name, I mean, we play so many great bands. Our resume is huge, but I mean, to be able to play with the original lineup of the Anthrax is, people dream of that. You know what I mean? And for most people, like, I loved Slayer. I loved Pantera, but Anthrax is up there when people are like, name some of the people that you look up to. And Anthrax is just one of those, I couldn't name every song. Someone's like, oh, name a song, prove it. I couldn't, but it was one of those bands, you never turn it off. I grew up on that shit. So it was legendary for me, especially with Sworn Enemy. God Forbid is a band, and I don't say this because we were personal friends with them, but it was around that time we first started. Unearthing God Forbid were just in our jam room, like probably more than any other band. We looked up to God Forbid so much. So when we were able to share that stage with those guys and be on the same, I think that's why we decided to go with Century Media, is to be able to be, album or label mates with those guys. That's how big of fans we were.
Wow.
So that was a great tour. It's funny you mentioned Nokia, because that was the worst show of the entire tour. And this was like a 2-month tour.
Why was that? Because I just remember loving I love all those bands.
To me, I'm a different vocalist. So I'm very, I'm not prima donna. I'm not spoiled when I get up on stage, but the sound at the Nokia on stage, and I don't know if it's because we're the opening act and we didn't have our own sound guy, because I know God forbid had their own sound guy. Sworn Enemy shared, I think, the same sound guy, and then Anthrax, obviously. So from my understanding was Nokia were union workers, and I don't know the politics of what it was, but at that point they didn't give a shit about their job or what they're doing for the opening band. So we had no premix, we had no sound check. Shit was just everywhere. Like I was screaming in between songs, like I just heard like a kick and like the bass. You know, it was like a kick and bass or snare or something. And I'm like looking at the board, the sideboard monitor guy, and I'm like, dude, I have no vocals, I have nothing, and the crowd's staring at us. And it was just a very, very bad show. And I remember that specifically out of the entire tour. That's how bad it was, because it was like I felt, because it was such a big crowd, such a big venue for us to
And,
play.
well, also because I mean that's Anthrax, that's their hometown show.
And that's just it. Like everybody, there was old school heads who were looking at us like young fucked up kids, like who are these guys? And we sounded, to me, I mean, we probably sounded decent, but up on stage, it sounded like, you remember that movie, That Thing You Do, where like the drums fall
Yeah.
over and like it's all out of tune. Like that's all I pictured. And once I get in that mode, it's
Yeah.
everything be so in my head back then. I'm glad I got over, but it was just a train wreck, dude.
You know what I was going to say? Part of it could be, I mean, not in terms of the performance, but I've just noticed this as someone who goes to a lot of shows and goes to different venues across the country at this point.
Yeah.
New Yorkers, truthfully, were very jaded because every single band comes out there. If I wanted to go see some big band tonight, I'm sure there's someone playing The Garden or playing what used to be Nokia, or. So when you go to like Dope, for example, I've seen Dope, this was a few years back, play Webster Hall to maybe 25 people. And this is not like early on. This is not, that is, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. And then I went to go see him in this small town in Pennsylvania, this place called the Croc Rock, which maybe you guys
Oh,
played.
a
And
lot.
the place is absolutely packed because
Yeah.
like this little town in rural Pennsylvania, they're like, Dope is playing this weekend. I'm going. And
Yeah.
in New York, it's just like there's a show every night. And unless you're, Pantera, people are just like, and so you do become jaded living here because of the amount of cool stuff that just goes on.
And I do. And now that you did mention that, yeah, they were. Yeah, it was just a rough night, and not having a sound check as the opening band, it was very hard. But it's funny you just mentioned the Croc Rock. It was like, I think Lancaster. We would do like Lancaster, the Chameleon, straight over to the Croc Rock, and that was like we hit those two venues back to back. I think almost every tour. Great venue. Some of our best tours.
Yeah, it's something about those small towns. I mean, this is unrelated, but if you ever get a chance to see it, Pauly Shore has like it's actually like a more serious documentary he did. They
Okay.
could find on Amazon. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's all about him doing stand-up throughout the country. And he's very like honest about this, where he's like, my mom is dying, which she did die after that. And he's just like, I want to make sure that I'm still able to like continue doing what I'm doing. And he's like, people do wonder, why aren't you doing comedy venues in LA? Why aren't you playing New York? And he's like, because no one really gives a shit. He's like, if I go to this tiny town in Wisconsin, people are like, holy shit, Pauly Shore's here. And he sells out venues that don't even do comedy shows.
Yeah.
So that it's a really interesting documentary in that sense. So I think bands kind of experience that same thing, that they may be a hometown hero somewhere, or they play this small town and people love it. Then they come to Times Square, New York, and people are like, "Who is this band?" And they have that, as Jamie Josta says, like arms folded, impress me, bro, attitude.
It's the same thing. I think, yeah, the Nokia was the worst on that tour, and I do remember playing LA with Anthrax, and that's our hometown. And most of our friends won't drive out to LA from Riverside, but that was a hard show for us because we had backs to us. I mean, there literally were like these new school Anthrax fans that didn't even turn around to watch us play, and it was like so sad. But then, yeah, we go play, somewhere Buffalo, Pennsylvania or somewhere, and it's sold out. We've got a mosh pit. People are like, "Fuck yeah!" signing autographs. So each city is a little bit different, and that's what's crazy about Europe. I mean, we went to Europe, and every single person bought merch. Every single person was moshing. Every single person was knocking on the doors to just hang out with you. And Europe to us was just, it was like a fantasy. It was like, oh my God, we were like rock stars over there. It's just the energy in Europe compared to America is so intense. I wish we could go back and play there again.
Yeah, I've seen that online. I feel like when I watch these shows, but whether it's South America or Europe, I'm like, wow, the crowd is so much more into it. Even if it's a big band like Def Leppard or something, it's not a bunch of boomers sitting down like here in America. People are really in, they're chanting all the songs. I've never experienced it myself, but I would love to. All right, guys, hope you're enjoying this interview with Jake Sirokman. I got a question. Are any of you shooters out there? Because, yeah, I guess see with the proper lighting. This right here, this is the best ammo out there. Why is it the best ammo? Because it's Fort Scott Munitions and it tumbles upon impact. Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to TUI, tumble upon impact, their trademark in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with every pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available through all 50 states. However, you're going to get the best deal through us just for being a Battle Line listener when you go to fsm.com and you use our special promo code BattleLine for 15% off. That's 15% off when you go to fsm.com and use the promo code BattleLine. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline Podcast. Also, we have the best night vision sponsor in the world, and that is none other than Photonis Defense. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper Binocular Night Vision System by Photonis Defense, which is the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high-quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Defense Viper Binocular to become masters of darkness. The new Viper Binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper Monocular, with a ruggedized body, and harnesses the power of the Echo Intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto-gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. If you want to learn more, I mean, there's so much to be said. We've done 3 episodes with the guys from Photonis Defense in studio, with Phil Otto and Sean Kirk. They really explain in depth why you want to go with Photonis Defense Night Vision. I can tell you right now, this is a premium product. I have a lot of shooters who ask me, and they're getting night vision from their local store that's a few $100. Look, this is more of an investment, but you're making a major investment in your safety and in your home defense. This is the way to go. So check them out, guys. PhotonisDefense.com for more information, or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. They are a great company. They've been with us for years now, and their support has been tremendous. So go out and support them if you're looking to purchase night vision. Once again, PhotonisDefense.com. Let's get back to this interview with Jake Sirokman. The Dope Tour, was that like the final big tour on that run of the band? Because that's the one that, yeah, I remember.
I think so, because that's the one that just what's crazy was, and I take blame, and my band tells me not to, is we were gone. That's right. That led up to, I think we did 240 shows that year. It was just nonstop. And after that Dope Tour, they didn't give us much break. We were dead broke in Europe. I mean, Europe, as fun as it was, it drained us. None of us had a cent to our name. By the time we got catering, food was gone. That's when we were stealing beers from all the remains. And mind you, we were in a bus with Madball and Terror. So we had good manners. We were well behaved. But that show psychologically, that tour fucked us up because we were drained so hard. Especially, what's crazy was, like I said, we went from like the Hatebreed tour, and then we did Europe. How did this go? Yeah, Hatebreed and then Europe. when we got back, God, where was I going with this? It was a really good story. Something happened in Europe, and they gave us a dope tour, and there wasn't much time. Oh, I'll go back to Europe. I'm sorry about that.
All good,
Everything's
man. No,
everything's
it's
like a
cool.
phone
It's
right
cool.
now. It was Hatebreed getting home, packing for Europe, making sure our passports, everything was ready. We took the flight. I think we had a red eye. Fuck, however long the flight, 12 hours, 13 hours. And I didn't sleep a week. I don't sleep on planes for shit. Everyone's knocked out. We get off the plane and we see the buses. We take some shuttles to the venue. We're like, all right, cool. When's the first show? Because we didn't even have itinerary. We like literally, we were just thrown on this thing. And like, the show's tonight. We're like, tonight? And they're like, yeah, in a couple hours. You guys go on in like 2 hours. I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
Holy
We
shit.
get off this shuttle. We get in the venue. Trevor from Unearth finds me, goes, are you the whiskey guy? And I go, Jake Daniels. He's
I
like, let's
remember
go.
you going by that name. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So my real name's Jacob Daniel Sirokman. I thought I needed this cool stage name. So I was like, oh, and I love Jack Daniels. So I was like, Jake Daniels fucking fits perfect. So anyways, Trevor's like, you're the whiskey guy? I go, yeah. He's like, all right, let's go. He literally fucking grabs me. We go walking to a market, buys the biggest handle of Jack Daniels, and we're walking through London, literally passing the bottle back and forth, get backstage, still passing it back and forth. And we're on in 30 minutes. And I'm just like, mind you, the jet lag. I think we had cocktails on the plane. And by this time, I'm a quarter of the bottle down with Trevor from Unearth. And I'm just like, I'm 3 sheets to the wind. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I get up on stage and it's just an ocean of people. Lights go on. First song fucking pops off. And I'm like, oh my, and I'm so wasted. All of a sudden, blackout. The entire fucking venue shut down. I'm like, thank God I just got out of
Jeez.
this. Yeah, something had happened with the power. It was like a weird, and I don't remember how exactly what venue this was, but it was almost like a warehouse dome makeshift kind of venue. So like something happened with the power outage. So I had a minute to like kind of sit back and be like, oh shit, I think I had some water. We only had a 20-minute set, so I got through it. But yeah, dude, that was leading to that tour. That's how that tour went. But we got home again, maybe a week, 2 weeks off, and then we went straight to Dope.
And you
Well,
know what I wanted to ask you about Dope, because this is from how I remember it, but I could be wrong on this. Weren't there some lineup changes? Because I just remember it being looking different than the same band that I saw, prior.
so at that time, yeah, Jeremy switched we lost Jeremy somewhere in the mix and Jimmy, and that I don't remember exactly when it was. We went to Europe with a different drummer. We did Hatebreed with a different drummer.
You know why
So
I
yeah,
remember this too? Because not you and Adair are the recognizable guys, but this is how I remember it in my head at least. The rest of you guys were all white dudes, and
yeah,
I remember seeing you with Dope, and I was like, oh, there's like a couple Latino dudes here. I don't remember them in the band
okay, so
prior.
so yeah, it was D Rock. So D Rock, who's still now our present guitar player, jumped in somewhere. God, dude, I don't even remember how we lost some of these guys. Like Jimmy backed off one of the tours. And then we lost Jeremy somewhere along there. We got Josh Feathers, who we knew from another local band, who I'm actually doing music with right now. He did the Weathered Soul music video with us. He did Hatebreed with us. And then he jumped off a couple of them. We got somebody else, Andre for Europe. But yeah, D Rock's been with us, God, I mean, most of the time now. I think longer
Okay.
than Jeremy. So yeah, there was myself and Clint are the only two like original members that have never left. My bass player and myself. And Clint's one of the dudes I've known since I was 14 years old playing punk rock bands. So it's kind of cool. But now Jimmy's back in the mix. He's been playing with us ever since we toured. So yeah, there's some lineup changes, most definitely. It
Yeah,
wouldn't be a
yeah, I
metal
remember.
band without some changes.
And for sure. And then hearing about kind of the debauchery and all that, which we can get into like where you're at now. We'll get into that at some point. But I would imagine that Dope Tour would have been the epitome of that because they were a band that fully embraced all that. And not only that, a lot of the bands that you played with that we mentioned prior, it is a primarily like, metal dude fan base. Dope. I even remember at that show that I saw you at, like it's like a lot of hot goth chicks. I'm sure this was a fun tour.
It was one for the books. And thank God, Bleed the Sky was on that. We did a co-headline, and we've known Bleed the Sky shit since before we both signed. I mean, we were playing Showcase Theater together. They're local boys back in when we were 18 years old. So we knew them fairly well. We probably wouldn't have taken that tour if it wasn't for Bleed the Sky being on with us. But they were coming out with a new album. I forget it. So we did the co-headline, and we were really good buddies with those dudes. But Dope was it was a hard tour. There was a lot of drugs. I mean, we were fucking eating cocaine for breakfast,
Wow.
drinking a lot. We were just hard. That was the tip of the iceberg. So that was kind of the beginning of the end. Just from being on tour for so long, we were right at that stage of just being so fucking big. Not that it got to our head. We were never conceited. We were still down to earth, homeboys, like cool, talk to our fans. We were never like that. We just partied hard. There was just no, we were the, and I don't say this to brag, but they literally were like, you are the Pantera Motley Crue of 2000s. Like, and it's not, it wasn't a compliment then. It was like a get your shit together. You guys are going to be fucked. And
And
ultimately,
who was saying that? Like the members of Dope or?
no, oh hell no, no, they were giving us the coke. No, it was passed on through the industry. You know, like our brothers and like I don't want to like drop names, but like docs and people of that nature. The bigger guys we looked up to, our social media, or not social media, but Century Media Records. It was just going through the grapevine that we were partying hard. You know, not in a bad way. We weren't dickheads. We were breaking stuff. We definitely didn't act like we were Motley Crue throwing TVs out the hotel windows because we couldn't even afford a hotel.
Sure,
But
yeah.
just we were just having a good time, enjoying. At least I was. I can't. My drummer didn't drink. You know, but that's kind of where it started. Was we booked a show, a hometown show, for literally like the night after we were done with tour. So we drove, I want to say it was like Florida or one of the East Coast, straight home. We literally went to my bass player Clint's house, changed, and we had a show that night. And we were just drinking, doing blow the entire way for like 48 hours after the last show we had played on the East Coast. And we're like, oh, it's our hometown. Who gives a fuck? It was a very small venue. We just did it just for the hell of it. Little did we know our entire label, lawyer, AR, um, our whole team was there, and we didn't know. We just thought it was just this little gig, but they were actually there to see a band called In This Moment.
Oh
In this
wow.
moment, in this moment was our direct support. We had no idea who these people were. Maria was a huge fan of ours because we
Wow, that's
actually,
crazy.
yeah. So what's crazy is I don't know the label Century Media, and I don't know this exactly, but the label is putting the show together to showcase In This Moment. They just happen to know because Maria and them were from LA. They had already known of us. They're fans of our band. So they're like, hey, throw these guys on your show. We knew the promoters. So threw them on the show with us. And we were just fucking assholes. We left our gear on stage after we did a sound check, giving them minimal room, because we didn't want to fucking break it down because we just got off tour. We weren't trying to be assholes. It was just like we just want to leave our. But we offered it to them. Hey, we'll leave the cabinets and stuff for you guys to use. But anyways, by the time we got on stage, it was midnight. I was blackout drunk. I face planted badly, busted my nose. We were known to be a party band live. And to me, it didn't matter. My friends and family have seen us blackout party, but to the label, it didn't look so good. And that was kind of like the beginning of the end. Was like, all right, we need to figure some shit out, or we're done. We all got along well, but I still blame myself to this day for just getting too out of control, blackout drunk, causing a scene on stage. Probably missed my vocals, probably stopped screaming, acted a fool. And I never really told this to anybody publicly, so you're kind of hearing this exclusive, but that's kind of where it was. I don't want to say over because we still had opportunities after that. Not further along, we weren't hitting the numbers for Century Media. We walked away with Century Media, clean cut, nothing, no bad breakup. We lost Phil Hinkle, who was one of our main AR. John and Blasco were on to bigger and better bands, so they were managing some other bands at that time. And there's no real disrespect. We moved on, and we had the opportunity to work with Christian Old Weber, as
Oh
you know
yeah.
him from
Yeah,
Fear
yeah.
Factory. And he was actually our producer and engineer for our second album. We did Adair basically lived at Christian's house. Nobody even knows this.
No,
We had
I didn't know that at all, that connection. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we got connected with him, and he actually was going to start managing us. Um, and we just never pulled the trigger on that album. We everything. What sucks is Bobby, one of his engineers at the time, was passed on his stuff, and everything became kind of like this jigsaw in the audio. I don't know much about audio files, so in order to piece it all together, it would have taken so long. I don't know what happened between his audio and this audio, but
You can talk to Edsel Dope if you still do, because look what he did with all that Static X material and brought it back
it,
to life.
so that's when I say we literally have one sophomore album that's in pieces somewhere. And my
Wow.
buddy
But you have a
Silver,
music video of one of the songs,
we
so
did Clint. So Clint started doing a lot of cinematography and filming. He actually did a lot of music videos for some people, Hawthorne Heights, Alien Ant Farm, and a few other big bands. We did master ceremonies in Adair's mom's backyard. Put that on YouTube. And that was going to be the big. Let's fucking give this another shot. And then again, it just was like life caught up. We just we took each piece, tried to remix it. We never did it. We never fell through with it. So if anyone out there is listening, I want to put a piece of album together. But by that time now, even still writing and playing music, no, those songs are so old to us. We've written more,
Yeah.
and I've got 100 songs on my phone that just from like every time we go to play a live show, it's like we write one new song. We'll play that song, fucking people love it. Then we don't play for 7 months. We'll write another song. People fucking love it. And then we don't play for another 7 months. Write it. So when I say we've got three, probably like 2 albums complete of music that we could put out there, it's just a matter of just doing it.
Yeah.
We're just in such good place. Not saying Manntis is a bad place. When you play the same album for 24 years,
Yeah.
you just get, and it's only a 28-minute album. So it's not like the, Forsaken black metal album that we could shred 7-minute songs. It just got really old to get up there and just, all right, Axe Redemption again. All right, Tragedy again. We have to always kind of be creative. So that's why this last time we played, it was the first time we all got on stage sober together too, which was pretty crazy. It was the first time in my life. So that felt really good. I think I took a couple swigs of Jack, like halfway through the set. The owner of the place that's where we grew up gave me a couple swigs. This before I went sober. But it was cool. We just said, hey, we just need to walk away from this for a bit. And it just has to make sense. We have to be in love with it because we weren't in love with it the last time. It was just get in the room, play, go home, check on the kids, and then, everyone's going through their shit. So, like I said, right before you and I hopped on this, I actually spoke with Jimmy and Adair. We all talk. We're all best friends. We're all brothers. We talk about it. We actually have another album of another band that I was going to put together with Josh Feathers, who was our drummer during those times. He's written a full album and asked me to stream on it. Would be Not Manntis. So that's something. And I actually had the opportunity to work with Tim Lambesis of As They Dying to fully engineer and produce my vocals.
Wow, that's huge.
I was fortunate enough to meet Tim a few times, worked out with him a few times. He just got me down to San Diego to watch As They Dying. Obviously, I'm really good friends with Brandon Chapetti of Bleeding Through, go down to his gym. So I've got people in my corner that are backing me to make this happen. But I just have to feel it here and do it for myself and not for any, do it for no other reason.
For sure.
But music along with a lot of stuff. I mean, that's been my life, dude. So it's got to make sense and not look like, oh, this dude's just trying to make a comeback because everyone makes a comeback. It's like, no, motherfucker. I've never stopped playing. I can name every metalcore album that's come out in the last year. I did, I do like Knock Loose. I do go to these shows. So it's cool.
When I listen to that album, I just, as I kind of said before, and I guess I'll just reiterate, it's like I do feel like your band and that album and whatever the follow-up album would have been just should have been way bigger. And I think maybe it was like, if it would have come out maybe 5 years later, it would have been bigger. I don't know, because it's so weird how music goes in waves. And I just remember like seeing bands that was called the All Stars Tour, for example, like in 2011 or 12 was the first time I saw bands like that heavy headlining major venues sold out. And I don't know if it was like if that album would have come out at a different time, that would have been huge. But I think it's just a shame that it fell apart and that there's only one Manntis album that was actually ever officially released.
Yeah. I think it goes back to us and our choices of tours that we picked too, because again, we broke the rules when it came to playing with whatever genre, but we didn't really label ourselves. I knew we were metalcore, but there's a lot of just different variations because everyone in that band, we all listened to different stuff, and that's what made us so great when we did the songwriting. So I don't know if it's because our choice of tours, because we'd go tour with Terror, but we weren't a hardcore band. We wouldn't get the respect or the two steps and the breakdown dancers, And then we'd go play with Anthrax, but we weren't thrash metal. We didn't have that denim, and we didn't have that, given a show with like Sworn Enemy, God forbid, that kind of fell into place. Those kill switches. Our albums the videos did really well too. And I was just telling somebody, it's crazy to think that when Axe Redemption and Weathered Soul both aired on Headbangers Ball, both those videos were the longest running #1 spots. And I give myself credit for that. Like I tell people, like, that is a big deal to me because we beat out the Kill Switches, the All That Remains, because we had a lot of emphasis on that Weathered Soul video. If you look at it, it was before its time. We had the whole Jack the Ripper theme. It was very, theatrical, like actors. So it was very cool. We went against what the label said, and it worked for us. But that might have been it. But everything happens for a reason, dude. I mean, if we continued touring and got any bigger, I mean, fuck, one of us could have been dead.
Yeah,
I was always looking at there could have been a what if.
sure. Yeah,
I know that.
things do work mysteriously like that. The thing that I always loved about your bands is like super heavy, and it was in that metalcore vein, but I always loved the hint of melody, and it was never like overbearing. Did it dare do all those melodic vocals? Because it worked having those on a lot of the songs.
Clint actually did a few of them. As we've grown too, what's crazy is, man, we were so before our full potential of how much musically we've grown as a band. Like especially listening to like Master of Ceremonies. So that's when D-Rock's got the voice of an angel. I mean, that dude's got some vocals on him, and we never got to really experiment with that. We've got songs that showcase his vocals, but if we were to launch that, it was nowhere near. You take like a Howard Jones melodic voice, it would have hit the scene probably as hard as he did back then. Nowadays, because it's not your typical metalcore bullshit whiny stuff. No
Yeah.
disrespect to the bands, it's great.
No, but a lot of bands sound the same.
Very, very, very much the same. And D-Rock, man, that wasn't the case with D-Rock. So we've grown so, maturely as a band. Even just now, our writing process, the songs we're writing, we're like, fuck, why are we not doing this? Because we're fucking good. And my voice, especially over the years, like it's gotten deeper. I could hit higher notes. Maybe it's because I'm not touring as much and it's rested more between. Maybe it's because I'm sober. I don't know. But something's gonna spark, dude. Maybe this podcast might be the thing that kind of toots the horn a little bit.
It would be awesome, man. I mean, not to, brag about the podcast, but it's like we've done interviews that I just wanted to interview these people. And then next thing I know, we're making international headlines. Like if you Google, and I'm not bullshitting, like if you Google Battle Line podcast and you look up news, it's really not the Navy SEALs or Army Rangers we've had on that has made the major headline. It's been mainly the music stuff because Blabbermouth will pick it up. I mean, the craziest example and the biggest headlines this show ever got is when I had John Dolmayan from System of a Down. And I was talking about, they haven't released an album since basically Manntis released an album. And I'm like, what's with that? And he's like, truthfully, we should have gotten rid of Surge back in 2006. And when he said that, I'm like, I have podcast gold right here, man. Like, next thing I know, headlines everywhere. And he just wanted to say it on the show. Yeah. I mean, and I think he may be kind of mad at us because, it made all these clickbait headlines, but it's just, that's what happens, man. That's what people pick up. I knew that was going to get picked up everywhere.
Having the opportunity to work with so many people and being a leader myself and a personal coach now and being sober, it's the more I tell people, it's not so much the message, it's just people want to hear real shit. The social media, it's so fucking fake nowadays. And there's just so many, like, especially being an online coach, it's just like, oh, do this or renting the Lamborghinis or the houses. It's like, you start telling these stories. And that's why I don't care. Like 2 years ago, I would have broke down and probably held back and not said shit. But I mean, everything I've been through in life, and it's not, hey, check me out what I've been through, but I've been through a fucking lot, from addiction to divorce, tour, culinary, personal training. Like I could write a book about what I've done. And I don't say that to give myself praise. I say it because now I'm able to lead people and tell people, like, just be your fucking self. Don't hold back, because nobody ever knows what tomorrow is going to bring us. And if you always have the intention of just like, I should have said this, yeah, maybe you should have said it, because you don't know who's listening. Even if there's a young kid right now aspiring to be a musician, it's just like watching me go through paralyzed vocal cords and bandmates that have broken up and the things we've been broke on tours. Like, go be broke on tour, fight the fight, dude. Like, so that's what it's about, just being authentic. And I preach that shit every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people gravitate towards authenticity. That's what people love. I think anybody that's respected, it's a hero of people, that's what they put out there. So yeah, getting into what you're doing now, because I think all of that is equally as important. Just seeing that when you go to your Instagram or check out what you're doing now, Manntis isn't even really in the mix of all that. So yeah, I know that you're a personal trainer, personal development coach. How did that all start? And then it sounds like, getting sober, getting fit again. I'd love to hear all of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it was the dope tour. When we got back and we kind of just realized, like, all right, shit, we got to be big boys. It's time to go, get a job or whatever we're going to do.
So you knew at that point that you were not going to be a full-time musician.
Yeah. And out of respect for the other guys, I'm not going to get into too much dirt of how it kind of went down after dope. But let's just say everybody was in a different place, mentally, physically, spiritually. No hatred, but it was about that time. I think myself and Clint, We had a few things going on at that time, and we were just kind of checked out. We were both. I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted a career. I loved music. I never wanted to walk away from it, but it was time to just say we need a fucking break because you figure, and bands been and praise the bands that have been going through it, but they probably fought through harder battles. But from 2000 to 2008, the shit that we went through and the things we've overcome and achieved as a band and best friends, like it was time. We knew it would take way too much to get the ball rolling up the mountain again. So me and Clint, like we stuck through and we're just like, hey, we're gonna do this. Clint wanted to go to MI. I wanted to go to culinary school, and we just kind of stepped back a little bit. Adair and D-Rock were going to continue as they did. I think it was at that point Adair was already asked to be in a band called 2 Cents with our good friend Adam, who 2 Cents, man, these guys, if there was going to be any band that Adair could get in, it would have been 2 Cents because they were just brothers to us. And they were right at that peak where I'm like, we couldn't keep up. We'd have too slow of a start to watch the momentum of 2 Cents. So they'd asked Adair to be in, and they went on to tour with Korn and I think they played with Metallica.
Wow.
Yeah, that 2 Cents was a band, and so Adair went and did that. Did some good tours with Shadows Fall. Clint went to MI. I went to culinary school. And during my time in culinary school, graduated, got a job right out the gate at a 5-star like steakhouse. I was a sous chef rather fast, and I was just like, "All right, this is cool, but yeah, this isn't what it's cracked up to be." I love cooking, but I wanted that education because I did love food. But that kind of got me into the nutrition role. And at that time, I was in the best shape. I was working out slightly.
But
But
you always looked like a guy who worked out, even when maybe you were drinking too much with Manntis. You were an in shape dude.
I was always working out on tour. I never looked like the buff dude or whatever, but yeah, I was bench pressing on the ice chest and doing my morning runs and trying to be fit. I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing back then. Plus, a fifth of Jack Daniels every single night, it's not going to be good for the
Doesn't help.
belly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, from sports in high school up until everything, I've always been active. I just never looked the part. But yeah,
I think you did. You're being harsh on yourself. Like you looked like a fit dude. Maybe not as much as now, but yeah.
And now I look at myself now and I look back then, I'm like, holy shit, I was just I was the beer drinking talking. And what's crazy is I look and I'm like, how was I so fat? We didn't even eat on tour. Like I was eating bags of cocaine and drinking pints of liquor. Dude. So yeah, I might be a little hard on myself. But I always respected training, nutrition, supplements. So yeah, I was, I had a really good, even better transformation. During my culinary adventure, working out at a local gym here in Riverside. And I just really got into training. And one of the guys, my buddy's Josh, I still talk to Josh. He's like, man, you make a good personal trainer. I'm like, there's no way. I'm still partying on the weekends. I live at my old tattoo buddy's house. Like I'm renting a room and he's a tattoo artist, party all the time. And I'm like, there's no way I could help people. And he's like, bro, see what you did to yourself and how far you've come. I gave it a shot, man. Within like a couple months, I had over 100 clients. I then went on to be the personal training director.
And it's also a very rewarding career. And believe it or not, I'm speaking from experience. Like that on the wall is my personal training certification.
Yeah.
And then, I was doing that up until the COVID stuff and screwed all that up. And it's really only something I did for a year, but I still like recertify every 2 years just to have it. But from experience, it's very rewarding watching people get in shape and transform their lives. So
I've always been somebody who, if I'm not entertaining, I love helping people, and I generally have a passion to help others. So for me, when I was doing personal training, I also ran like circuit classes and boot camps, and that was my time on stage. I'd crank the metal and hardcore. I mean, people looked at me like, this dude's crazy, but I would be screaming at them. I'm like, let's go, 5 more, let's fucking go. So I was running around, I'll be two-stepping in the middle of fucking, circuit floor. While I'm two-stepping. And to me, that was kind of like me on stage. That was my time to shine. And eventually I had, as a personal training director, then I had 12 dudes under me that all looked up to me. So that's kind of when I started mentoring. CrossFit came around in 2011, 2012, got certified. I took my position at that gym and opened up a place across the street, strictly CrossFit. And then that's really where I treated that as a band, because I was having 30 to 40 people in my class, barbells swinging, people jumping on the ropes. And I held some really, really good events. I had bands come down and play my events, and we'd have other CrossFit gyms come and big events, dude. And I was doing good. I took a 3,500 square foot gym, turned it into about 8,500 square feet. We had the nutrition store, we had a coffee bar, massage therapist. Like it was a dope gym, man. And that was my second home. And ultimately, at that time, my daughter was just being born. It ultimately led to my first divorce because I was basically married to the gym. And as a gym owner, we just saw things differently. I was only a weekend drinker. I wasn't abusing alcohol and drugs. It was just the homies were over, our dare was over. We'd have the garage. It was my little man cave. It'd be a Saturday night, kids asleep. And, you know, we just had different opinions, different views on life and where we were going. So divorced, moved into an apartment up the street. And that's kind of when shit went sour.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
that's really when, and I'm very open about this now. That's started dating the wrong girl. I sold the gym because my business partner at that time was doing something different. And I actually went on the railroad as a conductor for Union Pacific Railroad. And I thought this was going to be the greatest job. The girl I was dating, her family was part of it. Said, oh, the money's great. You have a good time on the road. And it just was nothing like that, man. I was gone for 17, 18 hours at a time. Didn't know where I was going, when I was coming back. Wasn't seeing my daughter. I'd literally get home to my apartment. I would just pound a fifth of vodka until I passed out. Wake up for the train call. Get on the train. Gone again 4 days to, you know, Yurmo or Yuma, one of these spots. And man, it was just, I wasn't able to get to the gym. The money was great. I was taking home close to almost $200,000 a year, but I just wasn't able to invest in it. And at that time, sitting on the train for so long, it started taking a toll on my sciatic. You know, given, and I don't blame all my broken neck and all this shit, but my shit's all fucked up.
Yeah.
Was getting some really bad sciatic problems. I was prescribed Percocets, and from Percocets, I was running out of them faster than I could get them, which then led to some opioids I was getting from the homie. One pill turned into two pills turned into three, mixed with coke, mixed with booze. I was just a fucking nightmare. And there was about 6 months of my life where I really lost myself. It was, you know, I don't get emotional anymore. And I look back and I count my blessings and my friends because I didn't know where I was, dude. I
And
walked
what
away
time frame was this? Like, when was this?
5 years ago. It'll be
Oh,
5 years. 5 years come this September. And I didn't really know, man. I never been addicted to anything in my life. And I still don't know if I was addicted or if it's just me coming off of them. I guess it would be the addiction. So what was happening was I was taking these pills and I'd feel great. My back didn't hurt. You know, I'd like nothing hurt. But when people would see me, they're like, what the fuck's going on with Jake? And I didn't know any of this. And finally, come to find out, somebody asked somebody where I was getting them from. They were laced with fentanyl. And I had no
jeez.
fucking clue that these things. And dude, I look back, and again, I don't say this to be like, man, this dude's crazy. I should have been dead a few times with the amount of fentanyl that I was putting in my body. I didn't know. It was about 6 months out of this year that I really hit rock bottom to where Adair actually was living with me in my apartment. And he said the only reason he was staying the night was to basically make sure I didn't stop breathing.
And
And
your kid was with your ex-wife,
it,
or?
yeah, these were never times. These were never times I had my kid. We had custody, and even the times I didn't, I wouldn't be popping pills when I did have her, and I only had her every other weekend. But during those, I guess I would be having a withdrawal, which I didn't know. But I never drank alcohol, I never did drugs, and I never consumed pills while in presence of my daughter. I'm a firm believer. I may not have been all there,
Mhm.
but I never allowed myself to do anything while with my daughter. Um, but yeah, man, there's times, and there was a few periods, weekends I remember saying I couldn't get her because of like some withdrawals or something. But yeah, man, there's Adair, talking to Darren now about it, like he's like, bro, like I can't believe you're with me today because he would sit by my, like I didn't know this. Like to me, it was completely normal. Darren's there, we're having some drinks, I go to bed, everything's fine, I wake up, good to go. And he would be like, bro, I sat outside your door, listened to you, catch your breath, and I'm just like, that was the scariest shit. As somebody who partied his whole life since he was 18 and never had these problems, again, I was like, it took me back. So I cut cold turkey. Went to my parents. This was again 5 years ago. Went to my parents. I was like, I guess I have an opioid addiction I don't know about. My mom, like, you know, gave me a big hug, thanked me, and I walked away from opioids that day. Never in my life, even during my broken neck, I didn't take the Vicodins and the things they gave me while I had my broken neck. I watched my buddies my whole life take pills and do things, and I was never a pill guy. I was more of an upper drinker kind of dude. So for me to get hooked on those, I don't know if it's just something mentally. I was so depressed and checked out. I just didn't give a fuck. You know, I just wasn't. It wasn't for the high. You know, it might have been, but I've never really talked about this publicly like I am with you. But it feels good because people knew what was up, and if it wasn't for these situations and the things that had happened to me, I wouldn't be where I was today.
Yeah.
So I had Second Life in 2003 when I broke my neck, but then Second Life Fitness came about 5 years ago when I was like, all right, enough's enough. And I still drank, I still partied here and there and dabbled
Mhm.
with some other shit, but nothing. I was never addicted to cocaine or alcohol. Um, but yeah, man, I got clean. I started at a local gym in Riverside. I knew a couple buddies that ran it. And I said, hey, man, I need to start from the ground up and started building my clientele. I became the fitness manager. I was about to be on my way to open my own gym with them. And then, just like you said, that cert, COVID hit. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm just climbing the ladder, getting back into fitness,
Yeah.
walking
Yeah,
in
and for
the
me,
front
I was like,
row.
and as much as like it's cool to be able to do this stuff via Zoom, there were some people that were training people via Zoom, and I was like, I don't want it. It didn't even appeal to me.
Yeah. See, and that's what, so right toward the end of that, before COVID, that's when I met my wife. And I've known her since high school. We always got along. I knew her very well, but she walked in, perfect timing, dude. She was going through some shit with an ex, and her daughter was, I think at that time, oh God, 5. My daughter was 4. We just started talking, and I was just like, hey, man, this chick's awesome. And she was actually doing some online health coaching.
So both of
So,
you stayed near your hometown all these years later. Yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of cool because I'm here in Port Washington and I've always lived on Long Island other than, a couple years ago I was in Connecticut and a year in college in Philly. But yeah, it is always cool kind of running into those people sometimes that you grew up with.
yeah. So yeah, the gym was actually in Riverside down the street from my folks' house, and she actually lives in. We live in Corona now, but yeah, she just happened to come in that gym that day. She was friends with one of my coworkers, which is crazy. Small world, and we just started talking, and then one thing led to another. We started dating. COVID was here, so I moved in with her rather quick. Our daughters got along very well, and she was doing some online health coaching stuff. So I jumped on with her, and I'm like, this is great. Like I'm getting back into fitness, and I'm able to help people transform their lives. So we did really well together. But then I just knew, and mind you, at this time we were still. I have every other week with my daughter. I was still drinking on the weekends, nothing crazy, normal first dating kind of shit. We'd go out to dinner, have a couple drinks, come home, have a couple drinks. And we traveled quite a bit back then. I think we did Georgia, we did Cabo. We were all over the fucking place. But I knew there was something more, man. I was really looking into the fitness stuff, and now I could start doing this is online fitness started getting very popular. I knew I wanted Second Life to thrive. So I happened to find Justin Wenzel, JWX, just one of his ads or his story. I followed him because he's best friends with Brandon Chiappetti of Rise Above. So I'm like, cool, it's one of Brandon's buddies. And I just gave him a call one day and I go, hey man, like what do you do? And he's like, I'm a business mentor. I help online coaches kind of get going. So I invested at that time. I've never invested anything in any mentor. And I go, you know what? Like I can't afford not to do this. So jumped on with him, man. He taught me exactly what to do behind the scenes, how to onboard, offboard, just run a fucking company through online. And I did really well. I dabbled with some graphics ever since Manntis, from the beginning. I was never a graphic designer or artist, but just got really good at the online stuff, my content, video edits. So last October, Justin brought me in to become his basically marketing director, part of his leadership team. Dream job I never thought I needed or wanted. But now I'm able to not only help my clients, and now I help hundreds, thousands of coaches throughout the world
That's awesome.
build
Yeah.
build their online presence. So it's just that ripple effect, dude. And what's cool about Justin is when I invested this money last May, like I said, I was still drinking, I was still fucking around some stuff here and there, nothing out of the ordinary. When I made that commitment to myself, I told my wife I was done drinking at that time. I said, if I'm going to invest myself to become a better person, it's not fair for me to drink alcohol, to do the drugs and do the things. And the only way I'm going to get better is by doing the things I never stopped doing, which was drinking in the first place. So I made the decision last May. There was no end date. I just said, I'm done drinking for now. Now I'm going on 15 months sober. And
Nice.
that's because of Justin. Justin comes from an addiction background. He was in recovery. He's a sobriety coach. So he's kind of been my big brother, even though I'm 4 years older than him. He's 6'5", 270, so he's my fucking big brother. But the dude just, he's pulled through when I needed him through our tough times and bad. But I have a dream job of just doing this every day with people, hearing their stories and bringing that visual to life for these guys, and just being a mentor, being a good fucking person. It's really it.
Yeah, that's great, man, that you're doing what you're passionate about now.
Yeah.
I think more and more people are getting in that headspace of just like, you know what, I don't need this in my life, whether they're addicted or not, that like if they're into fitness, if there's someone who's just a high performer as you are into bettering their life. Because it's interesting you say this because if you check out our YouTube channel, I clipped this, but week we had on Brent Gleason, who's a Navy SEAL, and same thing. He hasn't been drinking in 11 months, and he's like, I'm more present with my marriage, with my kids, and I'm growing my business. And I think more and more people are just seeing that. And I personally don't drink at all either.
Yeah,
And I wasn't drinking much at the very end. I mean, I never had a problem, I can honestly say, but
sure.
probably for many years now, it would just be like I would have a drink literally every 3 months or something at an
Yeah,
event.
yeah,
But because I became, and when you stop drinking so much, I became such a lightweight that just having one drink, and also if you're eating good, like your body is just like, what the hell is this you put in me? So then I'd wake up the next morning with depression. I just feel like crap, high anxiety. I'm not going to go work out if I'm feeling like this. So I was just like, yeah, even if it's once every 3 months, I'm done with this. I don't need to do it at all. And I think a
sure.
lot of it is just like our culture is you got to go out, you got to have drinks with people, you got to network, and I think all that is bullshit. You kind of
It
realize,
is.
man, like you don't need that in your life to have an awesome life. If you want to do it, so be it. But I
Yeah,
think if you want to operate optimally, you will do better without it.
and and I forgot to mention this, but leading up to that, when I turned 40, Angela and I were getting married in Hawaii, and although I knew I was in great shape, I was never in six pack physique shape. And I knew I set my mind turning 40. I go, I am going to compete in men's physique. So I had a local trainer, Justin, great dude. Still talk to him. I went in, I think it was like October of 2021. And I go, I think I want to compete for my 40th birthday, men's physique. And he goes, all right, let's see what we got. And there's a show March 25th. My birthday's February 28th. I said, I will be in the best shape of my life when I turn 40 years old. And for those 6 months, I gave up alcohol. I was still drinking, but I gave up alcohol straight edge for 6 months. Did the show, fucking killed it. I was super
Nice.
scrawny. I think I was a little too small, but we cut pretty hard. I got from like 215 down to 170 in 4 months. So it was a crazy fucking cut, but the best experience of my life. I've never considered myself as a bodybuilder or men's physique, but I did it just to overcome something I'd never done. I've done CrossFit, powerlifting. I've been on stage. I've fucking done it. I've snowboarded. I've done it all except men's physique. So I go, especially as a fitness trainer, I go, I've got to put my body through this so I know, so I can tell people like, look, I've been to 5% body fat. I know what it takes for 3 months to cut. I know what PEDs to stay away from. So shit like that. So I
So,
think
so,
that's what
so then being like transparent here, you did take some drugs.
I did. I've been on TRT since I was about 32 years old. I was naturally low. I don't abuse it. I stay within a 700-800 range. For that, I was doing I never did like the big shit. I've done trend once in my life, and it didn't do a fucking thing for me except fuck my hormones up. So I
Hmm.
highly suggest don't do trend. It was good though. But no, I stick to more like your orals, like your anabars, HGH, very low dose of GH. I'll run every now and then. Your clenbuterols, but nothing. I was still, you could tell I was a scrawny. I was up against these dude that just looked like fucking Arnold. I'm like, why are these guys not bodybuilding? Like that's men's physique nowadays. So
Wow.
definitely nothing to get the advantage because let's face it, dude. Like I thought about it, and as much as like it was important to me, I just survived 24 years of doing blow off of buttholes and fucking drinking bottles, so I puked myself. Why am I gonna go shoot steroids at fucking 40 years old? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
but I also do appreciate the transparency of saying I'm not 100% natty because there are those people out there who are going to say you can look like this just through diet and exercise, and I do hate to see that, man. Especially we talk about Instagram, like how ridiculous is it these women who have like they're like, hey ladies, go out there,
oh,
you look like, and it's like you're
oh yeah.
clearly on something, okay?
You're not smoking Benson and Hedges and drinking scotch. Stop, lady. You're on some TRT.
Yeah.
No, dude, I'm definitely not afraid to say what I've been on, and I've never, in all honesty, say I've done it. I've done a bunch of shit, but I've never abused any of it. I guess it's all abusing, but never to the extreme. If it's like GH running like 2 units, if you don't know anything about that, like 4 units is like a big boy. I'm doing like 2 units. You know what I mean? But again, my hormones are so fucked, and GH fucking is great. It's a longevity thing, and I've looked into it. I've researched it. But on top of your everyday supplements, I'm not a crazy meathead that takes all these roids, dude. And you can tell, like I'm a big dude right now, but I'm nowhere near a trend and Deca kind of guy, and not knocking anyone that does it because I've done them and didn't get the results that I thought I was out of it. Probably just damaged my liver more. But that really was kind of the catapult to me stopping the alcohol was I did that physique comp. And then, like you said, I'd go and have one or two. I was a lightweight. And it came down to like, what's the point of one or two?
Yeah.
But I can be doing it. The boys, I'll go hang out with the boys. We're in the garage playing darts, having drinks. I get fucked up still, and that'd be maybe once or twice a month. But it was the next day, and
Yes.
then Monday, and then it was that Tuesday. And I don't know if this was something psychological, but for me, my anxiety and depression got real.
Yeah.
Day 2 or 3 of the alcohol, like I wouldn't post, I couldn't hold a conversation. I just wasn't myself, dude. And it was just like I knew for me personally, and I don't knock any. I'm not that dude that shows up at parties like, "You really gonna drink that, bro?" They're like, "Hey, do you want to drink?" I'm like, "Nope." Like, "Oh, you're still not drinking?" I'm like, "Bro, it's been 15 months. I'm not ready." And I tell everybody there may be a day I just go have a tequila or whatever it is, but as of right now, dude, like wins have just been stacking. I'm present for my family. I get to make my family dinner every single night. Saturdays and Sundays when they want to go do something, I'm not like, "Give me a minute, daddy's hungover." Although I am moody and tired all the time, it's not due to alcohol. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
um, but that's kind of how it started, dude. And then by the time I did my third physique, yeah, dude, it's been a good experience. Just not drinking.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, I've experienced the same thing here. I've had depression in the past, and I know what it feels like to have that, what it feels like to have high anxiety. So to me, the fact that like I haven't really experienced that in a couple years, I get over things pretty quickly. I'm like, I never want to go back to that because I know what it was like. I don't want to have to deal with that crap anymore. What last thing really, unless there's anything else that I definitely want to get to, and I wrote it down because I realized that you said it at the beginning of the interview, and it is Battle Line Podcast. You mentioned playing military bases.
Yeah.
We didn't get to any of that, and yeah, this audience. I mean, so I'm a civilian. I'm like you. I've never served. I've just had the honor of doing podcasts like these since when I worked at Sirius XM. I met Brandon Webb, who was a Navy SEAL, and he kind of brought me into this whole world and was like, "Do you want to work on this podcast with me?" And then led to meeting Chris, also at Sirius XM, and doing this podcast. So our audience is about like 50% military, 50% civilian. Yeah, and I think a lot of the civilians just are the type of guys who are really into reading books like Chris Kyle's book or Marcus Luttrell's book, or of course Chris's book. There's definitely that fascination there. So yeah, I'd love to hear your connection with the military that I didn't even know about before booking you.
Um, God, I mean, I never saw myself as joining because I was always in music. When I told people back in the forts and the bases and stuff, like, "Oh, did you ever serve?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I wish I had a." And they're like, "No, you don't." But there was a time my bass player Clint was fucking super just intrigued by military and Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. And that was our whole theme was Platoon, Full Metal Jacket. I mean, half our songs had parts from those movies. So we were very invested in that lifestyle, dude. But we decided to go on tour. We never enrolled. But for some reason, man, every tour we ended up at some kind of fort or played some kind of base. God, I can't name them off the top of my head, but your Braggs, your Myers, your typical force. I can't name them all. I apologize, you guys, because it's been so long. But we played for a lot of dudes, and what they loved about it is every time we met up with them, it was just the respect. It was the respect we had. Instead of them buying us drinks, our last, like, they probably didn't know it, but if we sold 2 shirts that night, we were buying the soldiers the beer. Because I mean, fuck, I give so much respect to these guys, especially nowadays. It was rewarding to get up and just let these guys especially I think Haybreed, we played a couple of them. But just watching these guys just go out and have a good time without beating the shit out of one another, because I know there are some of those Marines that are just hothead jugheads. But dude, it was an honor and a blessing to play for the U.S. military whenever we did. There's no specific actual thing that we did for the military. It's just their nights that happen to get out and have a good time. So I thank everyone for their service. I am a patriot. I do love America. It's a fucked up world we're living in. But yeah, man, it's always an honor. I think that's another reason I want to play too, is play for something more. I have a
Yeah.
voice now, especially living a sober life and doing the things I put myself through, and just being someone there to help people. Like, that's kind of why I want to work on these lyrics and my vocals and really kind of use my voice as a tool.
Was there ever any military member or even like law enforcement who went up to you and said, I was kicking doors with Manntis playing in my headphones," or anything like that?
Say that. Okay. Revise that question.
I'm wondering if there was ever like a military member who went up to you and they were like, I went on a raid and I was listening to Manntis. Like, did you ever have those
Bro.
experiences?
So, God, my buddy Corey, I went to elementary school, middle school, high school. then we just lost touch for so long. And at the peak, God, I don't know. Fuck, dude, that just reminded me. He literally was on a mission, and he had Manntis playing in the Hummy, and then also I want to say it was like a Walkman back then, dude. And he's playing Manntis as he literally has his fucking gun out. Like there's somewhere in Iraq something, and he was on a mission blasting Manntis. It was fucking insane. Now that you said that, yeah, we've had some dudes literally like send us pictures of themselves, like with a Manntis shirt or playing Manntis in their bunker, whatever the hell the little tents are. Yeah, dude, we've had those. So cool.
Yeah,
We've had
that is cool, man. And that's why I love booking guys from metal bands, because I really do feel like there is the camaraderie there, and it's like this is what guys are going to listen to when they're experiencing ultra violence. Like you want to listen to the heaviest stuff imaginable. And there's been so many stories there that people wouldn't even think of. Like I said, having Edsel Dope on the podcast, like I don't know if you know, because this was a big thing years ago, that they were playing Dope when they were interrogating terrorists at Gitmo. They were playing Die Motherfucker Die. And it's cool to have Edsel Dope, because there are those musicians who would probably be like, oh, I'm embarrassed by that. Edsel Dope was like, no, man, I totally embrace that. If this helps some guys do their job or help get information out of guys, he's like,
dude,
I love it.
Axe Redemption had to help people kick some teeth in from time to time, bro.
Oh yeah.
That's what
Help me
that
lift
song.
some weights, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that song right there, Axe Redemption. That's what that's about, is getting that redemption, dude. So yeah, that's I've always been honored, dude, when anybody has brought up my band, because at the end of the day, we're just kids having a good time, and now here we are, 24 years later, still talking about a band that has changed a lot of people's lives. Maybe not up to par with like the Hatebreeds and the bands that are still doing it. Respect those guys, man, because it's crazy. Hatebreed's actually coming through my hometown. It's their 30-year anniversary, and we literally played their 10 years of brutality. So it's just this full circle, and I'm hoping to get back and talk to Jamie and just kind of dive in, because just going and talk with Brandon Chapetti of, at his gym and talking the music scene and just how Bleeding Through is fucking made an amazing comeback. Those dudes are on top of the world right now. It's cool, man. It really, between him and Tim, it's like, okay, I got to get this going. I've got two of the biggest bands, in the industry right now saying, bro, aren't you screaming? So
Yeah, it's also weird. Things come in waves in the music industry, because I just saw Kitty play Brooklyn, completely sold out, and Unearth opened, by the way. Completely sold out. People loved it. And I mean, the reason Kitty broke up, they're open about it. They did a whole documentary, like at the very end there. Yeah, they weren't making money though at the end. And a lot of those websites like Metal Sucks and stuff were kind of making fun of the fact that like Mercedes, the drummer, was selling real estate at the time, and Mercedes got like doxxed because they put up her whole ad selling real estate, and people are calling, hey, can I talk to the drummer from Kitty? And she wasn't able to sell real estate anymore. And it's just like, yeah, we had, we're regular people. Like our band was never as big as Metallica. We had to work regular jobs. So it's actually kind of cool to see that redemption story, I guess, that they're back and they're big again. And there's, you go to their shows and there's like these goth chicks who are 25 years old who they weren't around for Kitty's heyday, and they're getting to see that, and they're playing these sold out venues. So things do come in waves like that, where these bands who were struggling maybe 20 years ago are cool again. And you've probably seen it, like all of us, as someone who lived it, all of a sudden new metal is cool again. I went to Long Beach, not Long Beach, California, Long Beach here in New York, and I got a little sushi burrito. And the kid who's rapping it for me is like, he told me he was in high school, so he was like 17 or 18, and he's wearing a Jinko shirt. And I'm like, I remember Jinkos and all that. And apparently that shit is back. So things that, Limp Bizkit is playing arenas now. So you never know, man.
And for anyone listening, dude, that actually gives a shit about Manntis, it's really like, we get hit up every so often. I don't do shit on our Instagram page. We never grew it. I never do much on Facebook, but I'm still the dude that if I see a message coming on Facebook, I'm going to answer the dude. If I still see it coming in on Instagram, I'm running the Instagram page, and there'll be those random, hey dude, I just heard this song, or you guys, man, I can't believe you're around. It's been 20 years, that album's, and I'm like, the album's not coming out. But I guarantee you, if we had the right promotion and the right headlining band, and we could put it together, I'm sure it would be a successful tour. And we could definitely make a comeback, because like I said, dude, all of us are basically sober now. I'm in the best shape of my life. Honestly, I can say that with 100% confidence. My vocals are stronger than they've ever been. it could definitely happen, man. But right now, it's everyone's just living life. Now that the kids are getting a little bit older, I think it's a time where we could kind of step away from that and go, okay, cool. We could, but for us, it'd be more of like what Bleeding Through is doing. It'd be, the fly-ins, the events, the Furnace Fest or the Knot Fest, or
Yeah.
I think it would have to take an opportunity like a festival to reach out to us to be like, you guys want to do this, as opposed to just booking our own show and going like, oh, we'll go play, fucking Dave's Pizza Shop next week. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's different ways bands are doing things. Like we just had Brit Lightning from Vixen, totally different type of band, but on the podcast. And like those 80s bands, because I've been friends with Mark Slaughter from Slaughter. All those 80s bands, they play like casinos on the weekends. They don't do traditional tours, and they probably wouldn't be able to do well on a traditional tour. But like those casinos love to have those 80s bands. So like there's different ways that bands are finding to market and to still draw an audience.
sure, 100%. So yeah, that'd be it for us. And like I said, Josh, my fill-in drummer back in the day, he does have a full album. That's the one I'm supposed to go record with him, Tim Lambesis. But it still pulls on my heartstrings, thinking like, can I do it without Manntis, or should we involve it? There's a couple different ways, and practically we could do anything we want. You know what I mean? It just has to make sense and just has to come together organically, and everyone's just got to be in that right state of mind. But the music's done on this album. It's not a Manntis album, and I will be streaming on it. I just don't know if we're going to label it Manntis or it's going to be something else. We'll have to
So
see.
when you say if you label it Mantis or something else, so it's you and the other guys from Mantis?
So so Josh Feathers, he's the one that did the Hatebreed tour. God, he might have done Dope. uh, he was from another band back then, but he's been writing music his whole life, and he came to me with a project about 2 years ago. And we've been sitting on this idea, and each month he's giving me a new song, and now we've got about 14 songs, and this is who we showed Tim the music to, and it is I guess you say metalcore, um, very light melodic sound to it. And all I gotta do is write the lyrics and drop them in Tim's studio, but it's a full written album. We don't have a band name.
So
Came
it's
up with
not
some.
a dare and those guys.
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Is if we were to play a show, Feather said who would drum, because Feathers went on to play guitar and write this song, all guitar, all the drums. We would get Jimmy, and Jimmy's going to be playing drums. Well, then it's like, well, who we get to play guitar? So I reached out to Dare. Dare, do you want to play? If we ever play a live show, do you want to go do a one-off? And Dare's like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, fuck, I need a bass player. I'm like, well, Clint's not doing shit. So it's literally everybody but D-Rock at this point. So that's where it's like, do we go the Manntis name, or do we just say the guy's from Manntis and this is it? So, or do we just write new shit for Manntis? Man, there's so many fucking ways we could do this. It's good to have opportunities and different routes we can go.
Yeah, even though it's been a while, it's like there is value to a name. There's so much because it's like I was just saying with Vixen, right? That we had Brit Lightning on. They're one of those bands that the only original member is the drummer, but they're still Vixen. They're still touring as Vixen. It still sounds like the classic Vixen. And people do wonder, they're like, does this take away from, the classic lineup? But the truth is, if the drummer Roxy Petrucci toured as another name, they're not playing these big festivals. They're not playing casinos to a huge crowd every weekend. So, yeah, people value a name, and there are going to be people who go, "Oh, I remember Manntis." But you also seem like a guy who's up for a challenge of building a whole new brand as well. So,
and that's just it. Everything I know and what to do and how to structure and do. But the beautiful thing is we could go either route, because we never released a software album, so the sound can be a little different from the first album. No one's going to expect it to go, that doesn't sound like Manntis, because nobody really knows what Manntis would have sounded like on that second album. I mean, we had 2 9-minute songs on that second album we were going to release. I mean, 5-minute guitar solos. That's
wow.
We went such a gnarly direction with the Darren D-Rock. They just got so fucking in tune with one another. They were brothers. Like the shit we were writing was just unheard of. So I don't know, man. It's going to be, I'll tell you this, it'll be interesting, whatever we do, but something will be done.
That's cool, man. I'm excited for whatever happens, and it is cool to see they haven't stopped. And also, it seems like the fact that you're working an online business now, you'll be able to do this without having to take a step back. And like, I'm not a musician, but as creative people, as someone doing this podcast, for example, yeah, there is something to being able to like work on your own schedule, be able, if you were still working on the railroad, as you said, there's no way you'd be able to do this. And I could tell you, in my own experience, I've walked away from jobs that were 9 to 5 where I'd have to be commuting to the city because I was just like, I'd have to give up this, man. I'd have to give up all the other cool creative stuff I do that makes me me. And I think like the traditional wisdom is you work for a 9 to 5, you get a 401k or whatever. And that, at least for me, and it seems like you, like that has never appealed to me because I have to be working on something creatively to feel fulfilled with my life. And if I have a job that takes up all the time away from me to be able to do that, to be able to hit the gym, to be able to hang with people, then what the hell am I living for? Then you're just living for a paycheck.
Yeah, I told myself after I sold the gym, I mean the amount of time I spent at that place and then being on the railroad and missing so much of my daughter's life, I said no matter what I do in life, no matter how successful I am, I will never work for anybody else again. Given the opportunities with JWX, it's different. Like I'm part of that. It's not, hey boss, what do we need to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's what I love to do, and I don't, and I tell people this all the time, man. I'm just like, if you're unhappy and you're feeling stuck, like you still got life. You know what I mean? We don't know how much time we've got, but you got so much life. And most people haven't even reached their full potential. And for me, maybe it's because I was touring the world at 21 years old that I've just always had this mentality of never giving up. I've walked through Italy dead broke. You know what I mean? I've been through New York lost in the streets with not an ID in my pocket. So maybe I'm just a different breed. But like when I tell these people, I'm like, you can do whatever the fuck you want, especially in today's digital marketing world and social media. It's like you are your own rock star, dude. Like be that person. You could write an album yourself and do everything on these new systems and programs and all. Like I could come up with a whole hip hop album if I wanted. I thought about it. I'm a big fan of
That'd be
NF,
cool.
and yeah, I love his message. Maybe not like a SoundCloud rapper, but I do like different styles and genres of music. But I mean, then that's just it. I get these ideas and I just do it. I don't, no one's going to hold me back. I'm like, if I want to go write an NF sounding rap album, that means the world to me about my sobriety. Like, fuck, who's going to tell me no?
Yeah, sometimes people are, it would be, yeah, sometimes people are very down about the way things are going in this country. And even like Chris, who co-hosts the show with me, like I always say that he's become this like older, get off my lawn type guy. And I guess maybe I'm the more hopeful, younger guy. But I do think there's a lot of things going on politically that are horrible right now. I think the country is at each other's throat, no matter where you side on things. I do think there's a lot of negativity going on. People are not making as much money. People are finding it hard to survive with where the economy is at. With all that, though, I do think there are great things happening that, people need to look to the positive on because there are some that would argue like we're living during the best time currently. I don't know if I would go that far, but I think in some aspects that like of independence of being able to work for yourself, there's opportunities there that weren't available 20 years ago.
I'm watching, and that's another beautiful thing about my job is I'm watching people with no online content, creativity, video editing. They don't know shit. And I'm watching them within the first couple of months, like make these thousands of dollars because anyone who's got this can make money. And I hate sounding like that guy. Like, I'm not sitting here as a millionaire, but I have my time freedom. I've got food on my table. I get to do and enjoy whatever it is I want. And it's all through this. It's through this. And I tell people, I'm like, even if you're not creative, that's where I tell people, reach out to a mentor, reach out to somebody who's doing it and just ask them the questions of like, how did you do it? And
Yeah.
it's all over YouTube, except the fakes with the Lamborghinis and the fucking stupid, like I made this guy $10,000 in his first month. But back to my point, it's, I'm very blessed and fortunate, but I've been through a whole hell of a lot to get to where I am today to be
Yeah,
able to
people will
say,
hear it.
yeah, to see to what I've been through to be able to finally just not have that give a fuck. Like I've been broke, I've been bankrupt, I've been an addict. Like I said, I've been divorced. There's nothing you can tell me or harm me that's going to break away from what it is I'm going to do. And that's why I'm like, if I want to write a Manntis song, I'm like, I'm going to fucking do it. It has to make sense. And obviously I need my guys with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, dude, it's cool.
Yeah, no, this is great, and hopefully it'll give some inspiration to people watching it, and also Manntis fans who maybe have communicated with you over the years, but they're like, "What is going on with this band?" They'll be able to check out this interview and kind of hear the full story. So this has been awesome. Follow Jake on Instagram at Jake Sirokman Fit. I thank you for going long here, but I thought it was just a great discussion. Anything else you want to plug? You want to, do your best Gene Simmons and advertise whatever you're working on?
I'm not a very D-Rock's the Gene Simmons dude. No, man, just that's it, bro. Live your life to the fullest. Enjoy every moment and don't give two fucks. That's it. I'm not a big quote guy, but That's all I got, man. I appreciate you.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.